Varna, you want to chant, you can start. You are self-muted.
Yes, ma'am. Namaste, ma'am.
Namaste.
पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावः दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितं लोके सज्जन षट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारत पंकजं कलिमलप्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
हरिः ओम्, धन्यवादः.
हरि ओम्, धन्यवादः मैम.
We just wait for a minute. सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ परं वरिष्ठं ब्रह्मेष्ठं परमानन्दरूपिणं परमार्थानन्दयतिं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। So today we will see the summary of the 13th chapter. From the 13th chapter begins the final part of the Gita, consisting of the last 6 chapters called the Charama Shatkam. So the first 6 chapters are called Prathama Shatkam, the next 6 are called Madhyama Shatkam, and the last 6 starting from chapter 13 are referred to as Charama Shatkam. So it is observed that in the first 6 chapters, Lord Krishna highlights the topic of Karma Yoga, or we should say has more focus on Karma Yoga. In the Madhyama Shatkam, Lord emphasizes on the topic of Upasana Yoga, and the last 6 chapters are the culminating chapters dealing with the most important Jnana Yoga. Therefore, this is a Jnana Yoga Shatkam, therefore considered extremely important. Now, this portion itself will be extremely subtle, and also because this is Jnana Yoga and it is presented for people who have a prepared mind, which is prepared through Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. Basically, a mind that has gone through and has had Chitta Shuddhi, right? Since this is a subtle teaching for the prepared mind, for the unprepared mind, this portion may appear a little bit subtle and abstract, and sometimes one may wonder, what is the relevance of this in day-to-day life, right? This doubt may come. Therefore, Charama Shatkam happens to be actually subtle, and we acknowledge that, right? And here the main topic is Advaitam, Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam, the essential nature of Jivatma, the essential nature of Paramatma, right? They being the same, etc. Right? Exactly like the ocean and the wave. Superficially, the wave and ocean are different, but when you probe into the nature, both of them are essentially water only, right? So Advaita Jalameva Satyam. So wave and ocean are 2 words, right? We are given for the convenience of the transaction, and in the same way Vedanta says Jivatma and Paramatma are superficially different, both are essentially one and the same Atma. Revealing this essential oneness is done in all the Upanishads, like right through all the Upanishads, through the profound statement called Mahavakyam, Tat Tvam Asi, Aham Brahmasmi, etc. Right? So Mahavakyam reveals the essential oneness, right? And the last 6 chapters of Gita focus on Mahavakyam. Therefore, we can refer to this Shatkam also as Mahavakya Shatkam or Advaita Shatkam or Jnana Yoga Shatkam, right? So, in fact, in the beginning of the 13th chapter itself, the Mahavakyam comes, Kshetrajnam Chapimam Vitti Sarvakshetreshu Bharata, right? It is a Mahavakya Shloka, right? So, especially in the last Shatkam, 13th, 14th and 15th, 3 chapters highlight Advaita and Aikyam. The later 2 chapters are more of preparatory disciplines, which is 16 and 17. Therefore, in the Charama Shatkam, these 3 chapters are extremely important, and they are 13, 14 and 15. Okay. So now coming to this chapter proper, right? Arjuna mentions right in the beginning, he starts with a question in which he mentions 6 topics and wants clarifications, right? So the 6 topics are Kshetrajnaha, Kshetram, Jnanam, Neyam, Prakriti and Purushaha, right? So these are the 6 topics, right? So Basically, if you see the verses, right? So the second verse up to 7th verse, right, is the second one, which is dealing with Kshetram and Kshetrajna. Then you have verses 8 to 12 dealing with Jnanam, right? Then from 13th to 19th, Lord Krishna deals with Jneyam. And from 20th to 24th, Lord Krishna deals with Purusha and Prakriti. And of course, from 25 to 35 on Sadhanam and Phalam, right? That's the last 11 verses. So this is the topic-wise breakup of the chapter. We will summarize each of these and we will slightly rearrange this for the sake of easier communication and better understanding. Okay. So the very first topic, which is Kshetram and Kshetrajnaha from verses 2 to 7, right? So here Lord Krishna brings in the Mahavakya beautifully, right? Mahavakyam, right? Kshetram means the object of experience. Drishya Prapancha. So the experienced universe is called Kshetram, right? And Kshetrajnaha is the experiencer subject, otherwise called Drik. So Kshetrajnaha is Drik, Kshetram is Drishya Prapancha. Therefore, these deal with Drik, Drishya, Vivekaha, subject, object, discrimination, experiencer, experience, differentiation. And whenever Vedanta talks about Drik Drishya Viveka, we must remember two fundamental principles. The first profound principle is, I, the experiencer, am different from whatever I experience. I, the experiencer subject, am different from whatever I experience as an object, right? Subject is ever the subject and object is ever the object. Subject cannot become object. They are never reversible or interchangeable. So applying this fundamental principle, I keep on negating whatever is object and try to arrive at the experiencer subject. So this method is called Neti method, Na iti. So the first negation is the entire universe. It is an object of experience. Therefore, I am not the universe. Very easy there. I am not the wall. I am not the room. I am not this laptop, right? I am not the dog. I am not the donkey, because I'm experiencing all of this, right? It is easy. Then Vedanta asks us to apply this with the very same idea with regard to the body, which is slightly difficult. And Vedanta points out, if you apply the same logic, you will come to know that body is also an object I experience. Not only an object, an instrument I use during the waking state. Body is an object, right? Then in dream state, I don't even use this body, right? I use another body, which is the dream body, right? So similarly, basically it is exactly like wearing a dress and changing off, right? In one particular event, you wear a dress and then you change, right, later on. So similarly, body is a dress we use in this avastha, and in swapna I use another body, and in sushupti I drop both of them. Therefore, body is also an object, an intimate object. Therefore, it is also not the subject of experience. I am different from the body. Similarly, sense organs also. I have one set, right, for waking state. I have another state for dream state, another set for dream state, which I don't use in the waking state, right? So mind is still tougher as we go from body to mind, right? So you have to recognize the fact that I am experiencer of the mind and I am the user of the mind in the Jagrata Avastha. In Swapna Avastha, this mind which is aware of this world, I don't use. I have a different mind which is not aware of the fact that it is a dream. Very important. In Swapna Avastha, I have a mind which is a different mind which is not aware of the fact that it is a dream. In dream, the mind does not recognize dream as dream. Thus, I've got everything different. Therefore, mind also comes under intimate object. It is also like an instrument, like a world, like body, etc. Therefore, I am different from the world, the body, the mind, and the sense organs. I am a conscious being because I'm experiencing all of them. If I have to experience, I have to be conscious and existent, right? Which is different from the world, body, mind, and sensory organs. Thus, by applying principle number 1, which is the first principle, that is, I am different from whatever I experience, I understand that I am the consciousness who is different from all of this body, mind, sense organs, world, etc. Then we have to use another, we have to get to another deeper and tougher principle, right? What is that? All the experienced attributes or properties belong to the experienced objects, right? If this cloth that I'm wearing is red in color or orange in color, the color belongs to this dress. The color, the greenery belongs to the tree. The color belongs to the world. Then similarly, you come to your body, mind, etc. Right? So countless attributes are there. Vedanta talks about gross recognizable attributes in the form of Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Right? So I, the experiencer consciousness, I am free from all these attributes. So what is my nature? I am Ashabdam, Asparsham, Arupam, Arasa, Agandha, right? So I am all of the earth, right? Not this, Narupam, Narasa, Nagandha. So Kathopanishad defines my essential nature, and since I don't have any of these attributes, I am Nirguna Atma, right? So consciousness is called Atma, Nirguna Atma, Aham Asmi, right? So we can derive lot of corollaries from this, but most important is that I don't have a form, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Therefore, I don't have a boundary. So I am limitless. I am all pervading. So I am the conscious being, the Chaitanya, Atma, and Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarvakshetreshu bharata. When the consciousness, when the very same consciousness is obtained in one body, it is called Jivatma. The very same consciousness obtained in all bodies and across the world is called Paramatma. This Jivatma and Paramatma both are two words for one and the same consciousness, right? So, very, very important aspect. So, we dealt with this in the verses 2 to 7 very elaborately. And after dealing with Kshetram and Kshetrajnaha, Kshetram meaning the object, Kshetrajnaha meaning the subject, right? Then we will go to Purusha and Prakriti topic, right? Because Kshetram and Kshetrajnaha alone are known by the word Purusha and Prakriti also, we will complete that immediately after this, okay? So, Purusha and Prakriti, which came in the verses 20 to 24, right? So, the Kshetram corresponds to Prakriti, Kshetram corresponds to Prakriti, right? And Kshetrajnaha corresponds to Purusha. So, in this Kshetrajna Kshetram discussion, Lord Krishna started with the Jivatma and equated it to Paramatma. Whereas in Purusha and Prakriti discussion, Lord Krishna starts with the Paramatma and then comes to Jivatma. First Jivatma is equated to Paramatma, later Paramatma is equated to Jivatma, right? So the very same topic is being approached from a different angle, right? So Tat Tvam Asi and Tvam Tat Asi. From Kshetram Mam Vidhi Jivatma to Paramatma later in Purushaha, right? Is basically Lord Krishna comes to Paramatma being Jivatma. And how is it done? Purushaha is the Paramatma, which is all pervading consciousness, obtaining before creation. Prakriti is the basic matter in seed form before creation. Plurality is not there before creation, right? And all of them are in the form of one seed. Consciousness and matter, Purushaha and Prakriti, together is called Ishvara. That is before Srishti, right? right? And we also saw that Prakriti is subject to change, attributes and division, CAD, right? Whereas Brahman or Purushaha is not subject to change, attributes and division. Both of them are anadi, right? Matter is never created. So consciousness, according to Vedanta, is never created, right? Vedanta never accepts the origination of consciousness. And also only the Prakriti can undergo change. Therefore, Prakriti in seed form evolves and multiplies into the entire creation, right? We will see if we have time a little bit about how creation comes about. So we'll take it up at that time, right? So Lord Krishna says, when the bodies and minds are subsequently created, the consciousness which is all pervading gets enclosed within every body mind complex. So how many bodies are there? Infinite. So in each one of them, consciousness gets enclosed without getting divided. It's exactly like space, total space and pot space, different pots, right? So it is not divided, right? It's the same space, right? So therefore we have to remember that the enclosure, in every enclosure, consciousness is there, but without getting separated from the total consciousness. And we must always remember the space example for this, right? So body seemingly divides one consciousness into several enclosed consciousness. One Paramatma seemingly, right, enclosed within each body gets a name Jivatma, right? So Jivatma is none other than enclosed consciousness. Therefore, who am I? I am not the body. Body is just an enclosure. I'm not the sense organ, right? I'm not the mind, but I am the consciousness principle. That Paramatma is I, the Jivatma, right? So there what did we say? Kshetrajnaha in the body of Paramatma. Here we are saying that Paramatma is this Jivatma. Thus I am the Jivatma who am non-different from the all-pervading Paramatma. So this was the second topic which we saw from verses 20 to 24. Then the next topic, right, which logically follows is Nyayam, right? Nyayam is another name for Purushaha, that needs to be known. The consciousness principle is called Nyayam. And here a very profound discussion is taken here, right? The method of discussion done here is called Adhyaropa Apavada Prakriya, a very, very important methodology used in Vedanta. What is that? The entire world is called what? Prakriti. Matter divides itself into Panchabhutani, then the 14 lokas, the countless bodies, the sense organs, etc. So Lord Krishna says, Nyayam is the consciousness principle, right? We've already said it is all pervading and enclosed in every body also. Therefore, consciousness must be associated with everything in the creation. So consciousness being all pervading, it must be associated with the Panchabhutani, all the 14 lokas, all the bodies, sense organs, etc. So Lord Krishna naturally makes a statement, consciousness is associated with everything, everything is associated with consciousness. Then Lord Krishna makes another statement in which he contradicts himself. What is that? He says consciousness is not associated with anything. Sarva Indriya Vivarjitam. All the Indriyams are in consciousness. There are no Indriyams in consciousness. All the bodies are in consciousness and there are no bodies in consciousness. So everything is in consciousness. Nothing is in consciousness. Thus, Lord Krishna says, the world is not. It is there, it is not there, right? In fact, these verses from 13 to 19 call the Adhyaropa Apavada Prakarana, that is accepting the existence of the world and immediately dismissing the existence of the world. Lord Krishna has already done in chapter 9, and I thought to remind you, I should just reproduce the shlokas here, right? Maya tadamidam sarvam jagatavyakta murtina matstani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvastitaha nachamastani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram bhuta brinna cha bhutastaha mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. Right? We saw this in chapter 9. So this entire thing is an elaboration of that, right? So the brief Adhyaropa Apavada done earlier in verses 9.4 and 9.5 is what is expanded here, right? In these shlokas from verses 13 to 19, right? So what we say here is, it is the world does not come under existent category and non-existent category, but it comes under a category which we refer to as seemingly existent category, which is available for experience. It appears for the experience, but on inquiry, it disappears, right? We saw a very well-known example during our classes, right? We experienced the dream. Therefore, it cannot come under non-existent category. Can you say a dream is non-existent? Because whatever is non-existent, you cannot experience. However, you can experience a dream, right? So, at the same time, you cannot say it is existent also. Why? Because on waking up, the whole dream disappears. Therefore, the entire world comes under an appearance called mithya. In the respective time frame, it has got utility and value exactly like dream, right? Now, the dream is useful when during dream. Dream is experienceable. Dream is useful. Dream is transactable in dream. But you cannot call it as existent because on waking up, it disappears, right? So, what Krishna is saying is, we have two dreams, dream number 1, right? And dream number 2, right? So, according to Vedanta, both of them are experienceable in the respective states. Both are transactable in the respective states. Both are useful in the respective state, right? Now, if you ask somebody, is dream water useful or not? Dream water, right? Now, if a person is thirsty, right, in dream, he's in the desert, you assume, and he's dreaming, and he's looking for dream water in dream. Will the dream water be useful, or the water bottle that is there next to you on the bed be useful? Obviously, the bottle full of water there is not going to be useful to him. He needs dream water to quench the thirst in dream, right? Very important. That mithya, seemingly existent water is required, right? So dream world borrows existence from whom? The dream world borrows experience from the dream experiencer, and I lend existence to the dream world by entering the dream, right? So if you're in the waking state, the dream world will not be available, right? So Vedanta says you lend existence to this world by entering Jagrata Avastha, and you lend existence to the dream world by entering the dream avastha or swapna avastha. Therefore, observer alone is satyam. Jyotisham api tad jyotihi tamasah param uchyate. Jnanam neyam jnanagamyam hridi sarvasya vishtitam. Thus, neyam Brahma is, right, the observer, kshetrajnaha. I lend existence to the dream world and the waker's world by entering into the respective avasthas, right? So, any objective world is mithya only. So, who is the Satyam? Aham Satyam Jagan Mithya. Very profound teaching, right? So, it is neither body nor mind, either consciousness, Kshetrajnaha, Purushaha, Nyayam, right? I am the consciousness, right? I am the Satyam. So this profound Nyayam topic through Adhyaropa Apavada Prakriya, explanation of the 9th chapter verses 4 and 5 we saw. The next is Jnanam verses 8 to 12, right? Now, here Jnanam normally means knowledge, but as I said, here there are 20 virtues that are required, right, for the raise of the knowledge, right? First, we can say an easier way of summarizing now. Basically, I will list the 20 verses, 20 virtues for you, but an easier way of summarizing this is we can say everything that has got to do with the fitness of all layers of our personality. Body must be fit, sense organs must be fit, mind must be fit, intellect must be fit, right? Then the next virtue is not only these should be individually fit, but they should function as a team. Arjavam, integrity, right? If the intellect says today I have to listen to class, the mind should listen. A preoccupied mind is a unhealthy mind. So unpreoccupied mind you should have for that, right? So the fitness is important. Plus they have to work as a team, right? Very, very important. Second important virtue. Third important virtue is recognizing moksha as the primary goal. All other things are stepping stones. None of them can be my primary goal or top priority, right? Money will come and go, punyam will get exhausted, right? This vairagyam, right? Meaning rejecting the world, body, family, or at least mentally distancing, right? And understanding that none of them are really the end, right? They at best help you get chitta shuddhi and move towards your goal, and the ultimate goal is moksha, right? That is the third important virtue. The fourth one is devotion to God, unswerving devotion to God. And Bhagavan as Ishta Devata is very, very important, right? But slowly you move from Artha Bhakti to Artharthi Bhakti to Jignasu Bhakti, right? So devotion is very, very important. So finally we move to Nishkama Bhakti, Jignasu Bhakti, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, right? So then the last one is, right, fitness after the harmony of different layers, right? Devotion. Then the last one is the systematic scriptural study. Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam, right? That is very important. Recognizing the importance of the study of Vedantic scriptures, Gita, Upanishad, and allied subjects. That too not casual but systematic study, right? All these have been enumerated by Lord Krishna and he calls them Jnanam, right? So with this, all the 6 topics are over, right? Then from verses 25 to 35, the consolidation is done. The conclusion or consolidation from verses 25 to 35. In that consolidation, Lord Krishna says that not only I should understand my nature as Purushaha, otherwise called Kshetrajnaha, otherwise called Jneyam, right? These 3 are synonyms. Not only should I receive the teaching, I should also retain this teaching, right? I should assimilate this teaching so that during all the transactions, I never lose sight of my real nature. Because the moment I forget my real nature, I will identify myself with a limited body, right? So after 5 years, what will happen to me? What will happen to my body, right? This is what we will start worrying about, right? And therefore, if I forget my real nature and identify with the body, samsara will come in the form of HAFT, helplessness, anger or anxiety, frustration and depression, right? So I don't have control, right, over many of the anatma, any of the anatma for that matter, right? So therefore it will result in HAFT if you promote ahankara and mamakara, ahankara, raga, dvesha, right? Therefore, we also talked about remembering our nature and 2 types of meditation Lord Krishna had prescribed. One was Akasha Dhyanam, another was Prakasha Dhyanam, right? So, I am like the all-pervading space and the light of consciousness, right? So with this, Lord Krishna concludes this very, very profound 13th chapter. Okay. So the important shlokas are listed here. Verses 3, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. and then of course 18, 23, 30, 32, 33 and 34. Now there is actually a very smooth entry into the 14th chapter. If you see, Shankaracharya in his Bhashyam says very clearly that the entire 14th chapter, if you see, is a commentary on a few of the shlokas here. For instance, if you take the verse number 20, right? Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Vidyaya Nadi Ubhavapi Vikaransha Gunanshaiva Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan. Right? So, Vikaransha Gunanshaiva. Guna. So, what is talked about here? Know both Prakriti and Purusha to be beginningless. Know all the products and gunas to be born out of Prakriti. Note this, gunas to be born out of Prakriti. And then 20, 21, 22, etc. are all about Prakriti is the cause for the creation, etc. Right? And Purusha and Prakriti, role of them in creation, etc. So the 14th chapter is basically going to be an elaboration on some of these aspects, very interesting aspects which we have not seen before in Gita. So some of those topics are going to be touched upon in the 14th chapter. So what I thought was, because it's a long time since we completed Introduction to Vedanta, and this particular concept is very, very essential to understanding the 14th chapter, I would just introduce a few critical concepts, or I would say I would just remind you about it. It is of course preferable for you to go back to Introduction to Vedanta and go through the entire session on, if possible, on Shariratrayam, Avastatrayam, Panchakosha, as well as the subject, the topic on creation, the class on creation. Okay, so basically, I just want to spend a couple of the rest 20-25 minutes on this subject. Basically, if you remember, we looked at Shariratrayam in Introduction to Vedanta, and we said that there is the same body mind complex can be looked at from the angle of three bodies, Shariratrayam, or Kosha Panchakam or Panchakosha, or from the three states, Avastha Trayam, right? And we saw the important features of Atma also, which is, Sarvagataha, etc. All this is with respect to the microcosm or the individual, or we use the word Vyashti. Okay. Now, the same thing when we have to understand at Samashti level, right? How does the cosmos or creation come about? What was there exactly before creation came? This is going to be our discussion. Okay. So in Sanskrit, we call it Srishti, right? So we need to understand this topic because the nature of Maya is, or Maya or Prakriti, is what will be found in the entire universe, in whether it is the world or whether it is the bodies, like parent, like child. Okay. So creation is a manifestation of something which was always existing in its potential form. Okay. So unmanifest meaning it is not discernible to the sense organs. Okay. So what existed before creation, according to our scripture, the basic stuff, which is the source of all forms of energy as well as all forms of matter, right, is Maya, Prakriti, right? And there was Brahman also. Okay. So Maya is the source of all forms of energy and all forms of particles, all forms of matter, all forms of things, including all the individual Shariratrayams. Then the eternal consciousness, which is beyond time and space, right? So before creation, Maya was there, Brahman also was there, right? So both consciousness and Maya were always present, right? So both are Anadi, right? So you see in Tattva Bodha, which is a very important text and which is what we saw in Introduction to Vedanta, Brahmashraya Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunatmika Maya Asti. Very significant sentence, which is why I introduced this topic. Brahmashraya Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunatmika Maya Asti. Maya is endowed with Sattva, Rajas and Tamo Gunaha, all three. Okay, so Brahman is Chaitanya Swarupam, Nirgunam, Nirvikaram, Nirvikalpam, not subject to division, changeless, right? And Maya is matter, Jadam, has attributes Sagunam, is Savikaratvam, and is subject to multiplication, Savikalpam, right? Very important. So the world manifests out of Brahman and Maya. So in fact, this is what is depicted in Saundarya Lahari in the opening shloka. Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yadi Bhavati Shakta Prabhavitum Nache Devam Devo Na Khalu Kushalaha Spanditumapi. Basically, Lord Shiva, this is in praise of Shakti. So Lord Shiva will not be able to manifest the creation if the union has not happened with Shakti. Basically, this is glorifying Shakti, but the essence is that Brahman by itself cannot bring about creation. It is Maya Sahitam Brahman, right? Very important aspect here. So manifestation or Abhivyakti, right? Like a seed becoming a plant, right? So how does this happen? First stage, Sukshma Prapancha arises from Karana Prapancha. Then the Sthula Prapancha arises from Sukshma Prapancha. And then the Karana Prapancha, right? Very important, we must understand. Karana Prapancha has always been there. It is beginningless, right? So from that beginningless Karana Prapancha, Sukshma Prapancha comes. And from Sukshma Prapancha, Sthula Prapancha comes, right? Now the universe goes from unmanifest Vyakta state to Avyakta state to Vyakta state, right? That is very important. Only the avastha, the state, just like water goes through, right? Water vapor, ice, water, etc. The avastha or condition changes. The universe has always existed. Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyakta nidananyeva tatraka paridevana. We saw in chapter 2, 28th verse, right? The only difference is the avastha vedaha natu vastu vedaha. There is no change in the vastu itself, right? And that's why Krishna says, why are you talking about death? Death is nothing but body going out of shape, right? It just goes out of shape, gets a new body and comes back. That's all. There's no point in crying, right? So then there is stages in which the creation happens. And in stage 1, Sukshma Bhuta Srishti, right? Sukshma Bhuta Srishti. From Karana Prapancha, the next stage is Sukshma Bhuta Srishti, right? So the 5 subtle elements, Akasha, space, Vayu, air, Agni, fire, Jalam, water, and Bhumi or Prithvi, in that order they arise. The Sukshma Bhutani. Now there are 3 common features for all the 5 elements. This is the important point that we need to remember right through the 14th chapter. The Jnana Shakti or the knowing faculty, which is Sattva Guna aspect. Kriya Shakti, the capacity to be active, which is the Rajoguna aspect. Dravya Shakti, or what we term as inertia, right? Tamoguna aspect. All 3 features are common across the Sukshma Bhutani, all the 5 elementals, okay? And therefore, we actually refer to Maya as Trigunatmika Maya, right? So that's basically the 3-stranded Maya. Guna also means rope, right? Guna also stands for the Sattva, Rajo and Tamo Guna, right? Very important. So Trigunatmika Maya. So the subtle elements are born out of Karana Prapancha. And what we have to remember is they are having all the three gunas in each one of the five elements. Sattva guna, Rajo guna and Tamo guna, right? And we must remember that space is the subtlest and Prithvi is the most, actually the grossest among the five. And in that order they originate. This is the order that is given in the Taittiriya Upanishad also. And one important thing is you have to remember space is a created entity in Vedanta, right? So we believe only now people have understood that space is different from vacuum, the scientists. But we have always believed that space is a created entity with its own properties, right? So stage one was Sukshma Bhutam, then Sukshma Bhautikam, right? Or Sharira Shrishti, right? So each subtle element has all three gunas. So how many items will you have? 15 items, 5 into 3. Okay. So first Sukshma Bhuta Srishti happens, and then all the Sukshma Sharirams are born out of Sukshma Bhutani. Okay. Sukshma Sharirams are born, not Sthula Shariram. Sukshma Sharirams are born out of Sukshma Bhutani. Pancha Jnanendriyani are born out of the respective Sattva aspect. Pancha Karmendriyani are born out of the Rajoguna aspect. Mind is born out of Sattva of all the five Bhutams mixed together. And Pancha Prana are born out of Rajoguna aspect of all the five Bhutams, right? So we'll quickly see how this happens, right? So if you see from Brahman, if you see, this is just the 15 elements which are listed here. You have Sattva, Tamas, and you have Sattva of space, Tamas of space, Rajas of space. Similarly, Sattva of air, Vayu, Tamas, Rajas, like this, all 15. Okay. Then you see that the five sense organs of knowledge, right? The ears, skin, eyes, tongue, and nose are born out of the Sattva aspects of the space, air, fire, water, and earth, respectively. I'm not going into the details. If you want the details, please do go through the entire class there, right? And if you see, the inner organ, the mind, intellect, memory, and ego are born out of the Sattva aspect of all the five elements put together. These are born out of one element, but the mind is born out of, mind, intellect is born out of all the elements put together. Similarly, from the Rajoguna aspect, the Karmendriyas are respectively born. These are all Sukshma Shariram, not Sthula. Okay. So they are all the power, the sensory powers, right? Or the Karmendriya powers. And then the Pancha Pranas are born out of the Rajoguna aspects, right? Of all the five elements. So you will also see that as the, we go from space to air to fire to earth, you will see that the number of sense organs that can discern that will also increase. Basically, for space, we can only hear. Whereas if it is the ear, we can hear, we can feel, we can see, we can taste, right? And we can smell, right? So just expanding on this, you will see that from Akasha or space, right? Vayu or air is born. So this is the first thing that I told you. This is the order of creation. And you will see that basically Akasha or space can be discerned only by sound, right? Basically Shabda, right? Shabda can get transmitted through space, right? And Shabda is associated with space. Shabda is born out of the Sattva aspect of space, right? Basically your ear can discern your sound, and it is born out of the Sattva aspect of the space. Then if you take Vayu, right? You will see that Vayu, you can, Sparsha is associated with Vayu specifically, and Vayu also has sound. So there is one special, right, aspect attached to that particular element, and it also inherits the parent. Basically, I said Vayu is born out of Akasha. So it also inherits Shabda as well as Sparsha. If you see Agni, then you will see all three, right? Rupam, Sparsha and Shabda. If you see Jalam, you will see Shabda, right? You will see Rupam, Sparsham, and the uniqueness is Rasa, that is the taste, right? And then if you see these five, as far as the Prithvi or earth goes, you will see that all five aspects, right? It is discernible by all the five sense organs, and it has all the properties, right? Sound, touch, color, taste, as well as smell, right? Very important. So, as I said, now from each of these 15 items or a combination of these items, that is 5 Panchabhutani and the 3 aspects, Sattva, Rajas and Tamo, all the Sukshma Sharirams are born out of the Sukshma Bhutani. We just saw this, Pancha Jnanendriyani, Pancha Karmendriyani, mind and Pancha Pranadayaha. Pranadayaha is full of energy, so Rajoguna Pradhan, right? Then from the Sukshma Bhutani, right, then the Sthula Bhuta Srishti happens. The solid, what we see, right, and what we can feel, right? Sthula Bhuta Srishti happens, right? The tamas component of the 5 elements alone get grossified to become the 5 gross elements, Pancha Sthula Bhutani. So each Sthula Bhutam is mixed, right? Each Sthula Bhutam is mixed. It has all 5 components in it, right? Predominantly, one of the bhutas will be there. I'll show you the table soon. And basically, the gross space will have 50% of gross space, Tamoguna, and 1/8 each of other 4 elements, right? So gross space will have half space, 1/8 air, 1/8 fire, 1/8 water, and 1/8 earth. Similarly, gross water, gross air, gross fire, gross earth. So each one has actually a mix of one of all the 4 elements in a smaller proportion, 1/8 basically. So 50% will be its own, like space means, gross space means half of it will be space. The rest 4 will be, right, 12.5% in that, right? So what essentially we are coming down to, and that's the takeaway for us, is the Pancha Bhutani as well as the Pancha Bhautikani are a product of Trigunatmika Maya. Trigunatmika Maya essentially means a Maya which is having Sattva, Rajas and Tamoguna. All the 3 gunas. And all the 3 gunas get transmitted into all the 5 elements, Sukshma Bhutani and Sthula Bhutani. And from the Sthula Bhutani, all the Sharirams, whether it is Sukshma Shariram or it is Sthula Shariram, our body, look at our body, it will have all the 5 components in some proportion or other. Therefore, they will also be subject to Trigunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamo. Look at the beautiful canvas that Vedanta has painted. Now, each Shariram, since it has a mix of the 5 elements as well as the Trigunatmika Maya's inheritance, everybody has a proportion of Sattva, Raju and Tamo, and that can vary from person to person based on the law of karma, which we studied in Vedanta, and can be influenced also by the lifestyle that we adopt and the way we choose to live our lives, And this is what is talked about when we speak about Varnashrama Dharma, and we talk about Varnas, and we say the Guna Brahmana is one in whom Sattva Guna is predominant, and Guna Kshatriya is one in which a Rajo and Sattva combination is there. A Guna Vaishya is one who has a Rajo and Tamo mixture, and a Guna Shudra is one who has predominantly the Tamo Guna as the dominant Guna. This is the connection. Now this becomes very important as we get into the 14th chapter, where we are going to be discussing the types of, different aspects, the food we eat, the kind of austerity, the penance, all of them, right? So we're going to see a lot of things with respect to Triguna and how they vary and what guna is most important for our spiritual journey, and how do we go about promoting that and protecting that. What is the food to avoid? What are the exercises to be avoided? All of that we will see in 14th chapter, we will see in 17th chapter, etc. Right? So I just wanted to give you a brief idea of this and remind you about this, so that when we enter the 14th chapter, it will be easier for you to understand why this importance on the Triguna, right? So I'll complete here. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Any questions? One second, let me just see. Yeah, there are some. Dhanyavadaha for this introduction. Okay. Any other questions any of you may have? You can also go back and check the introduction to Vedanta videos on this. It will help you actually understand better. Okay. I don't see any hands up here. Okay. There are no other questions. So that's fine. So next week we will start with the 14th chapter, and yeah, we will meet on 8th at 8:25. Hari Om.